Hi guys, welcome back to my Psych Life. Today's video is on how to maximize points with online discussions. I'm back with more content as promised. I'm on that 2-week break between semesters, so I'm gonna do my best to record as many tips and trick videos as I can. Just kind of give you guys an update on things that happened over the semester. Maybe share with you some things that are coming down the pipeline. I'm not quite sure what you guys are gonna get, but for today's video, just like I mentioned, is gonna be about how to maximize points with online discussions. If you guys are taking an online class for the first time, or if you're in an online program, you may be getting back discussions where you're not getting the total amount of points available to you. So I thought I would put a video together that shares some of the tips and tricks that I do that help me ensure to get the maximum amount of points possible. It's just a couple of things that sometimes can be overlooked or missed, or if you're just tired, or if you just are kind of overwhelmed by the structure of the questions, it's really easy to leave points on the table. And if you're like me, you know, you may be a bit of a type A personality, you want all the points, okay? I want all the points if I can get them. It's rare that I don't get the full points awarded, and that's in instances where I'm really not meeting the criteria for that specific week. But there are a few tried and true, kind of almost static type things that you need to do. One of which is going to be breaking down the question and making sure that you're answering all of the questions that are being posed, making sure that your grammar and your formatting is on point with the discussion and also with the references, and then making sure if your professor has set a word count limit that you guys are meeting that as well. So I hope that you guys will find this video helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All right guys, so I'm in the course room. One of the things that I want to recommend that you guys think about and actually follow this pro tip is never, ever, ever. And I say never, ever, ever just because I've made this mistake in the past, but don't do your assignment in the course room. There's tons of reasons why, but two of the main things are, number one, you won't be able to capture all of your thoughts and get everything entered into the response before it times out. Make sure that you are copying it over into like a Word document so that you can check the grammar, check your formatting, make sure that it's all clean and it looks presentable. I will go ahead and grab it from here and I will transport it over to Word. I do that for several reasons. You know, I've been burned by trying to respond within the course room in the past. You'll lose all of your work. And we all know that brilliance exudes itself on your first attempt. No, but seriously, guys, you will have a really awesome response to something and then it times out. You lose your work. And then you have to start all over. So just a rule of thumb, always grab the requirements, move them over to Word, and then you can function freely based on, you know, if you want to step away for a little bit or whatever the case may be. So disclaimer here, guys, you may not need to do this, but this is a pro tip for anybody who may be taking an online course for the first time, someone who has not been getting a maximized amount of points, or you're getting feedback that you're unhappy with about your discussion points, whether that's an instructor asking for more information or telling you that you didn't address all of the requirements. So this is something that I've adapted. I don't necessarily do the highlights, which is something that I'm going to do just to kind of illustrate how I'm breaking the questions up for this purpose. But I do come in every time I grab my assignment, I bring it over here to Word, and then I will separate the questions to ensure that I'm able to address each component. Even if I don't get, you know, super drawn out with my responses, I will make sure to address each and every component of the question to help to maximize those points. And I do want to warn you guys, I'm going to say maximize the points several times just because that is the purpose, right? That's the tip here, is to give you ways to increase your points or capture all of the points that are available to you. All right. So for this particular question, guys, I am, as you guys know, a psychology major. This is doctorate level work. So don't focus so much on the content of the question as much as you concentrate on how I'm breaking the question apart so that you can then take this process, if you like it, and apply it to your own world. Okay. So the first thing that this particular instructor asks for is for us to discuss the differences in roles between functioning as a clinical psychologist or provider of counseling services who's going to be testifying in court, or functioning as a forensic psychologist or evaluator. So because I've done the readings, guys, but also too because I've been in my field for quite some time, I know that there's a difference between being a forensic psychologist and being a clinical psychologist. So right away in my brain, I know there's two parts to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a hard break in between that first part of the question and the rest of the part of the question, okay? And then what I also recognized is that this first part is specific to being a clinical psychologist, and the second part is about functioning as a forensic psychologist. So in and of itself, I know that question number one is actually two questions. So I'm going to separate those and I'm going to highlight them. You may not want to do the second part that I'm going to do, but for the illustration point here that I want to drive home, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy the first part of this question, just so if I step away from this and I come back, I know what the full question is. So the first part is discuss the differences in roles between functioning as a clinical psychologist who's providing testimony. And then the second part of that question is provide the differences when you're functioning as a forensic psychologist, okay? So that's part one. Now, the next thing that she asks for is to generate possibilities of what could go wrong if you go from one role to the other with the same client. And she wants us to explore responses in both directions. So moving from clinical to forensic and then forensic to clinical. So again, I'm going to put a hard break in between this portion of the question and the rest. Now, with this question, because she says vice versa, I'm just going to go ahead and copy that and I'm going to paste it, and then I'm going to change this to say forensic, excuse me if I can spell, to clinical. Okay, that way I know that I'm supposed to address the question bidirectionally. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and make this another color. That way my eye will automatically know this is the second part and there's two parts to the second question. Next, she asks us to then go in and review our state legislature. What does it say about the role differences and what isn't included? Now, guys, this is kind of a question that requires that you have already done your reading so that you actually know. You probably have been exposed to ethical code information for my scenario, also other state guidelines. So you know there's going to be some stuff that's in there. There may be stuff that's in the APA ethical code, and there may be something in the state legislature that are not duplicated in both areas. So that's exactly what she's looking for in this question. So again, this is a two-parter. So I'm going to review the state legislature to see what it does say about these role differences. And then I'm going to review the state legislature to see what it doesn't say about the differences between these two roles. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the second part, or the first part, I'm sorry, of this one. Okay, and again, I only duplicated it so that if I walk away and come back, I'm not spending a ton of time trying to figure out, and I don't definitely leave behind the question without addressing it. Okay, then guys, what I would do is then I would start going in and just addressing, blah, 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 each section. Generally, this professor, and I know specifically, and you guys will want to either check with you know, your professor or you're looking the syllabus to determine how they like you to address discussion questions, they usually want you to respond back in paragraph format unless they specifically are looking for bulleted answers or there's some specifics in the directions. So initially I'll come in, I'll plug in my initial thoughts, I'll pull the detail from each of the references, and then I will clean it up afterwards and make it, you know, paragraph format so that it comes across as scholarly. Another pro tip, guys, that I want to give you is I always stick a references section down at the bottom of my discussions when I'm writing them. And that's because I know that I want to be able to go back to those references. So as I'm pulling my information for each section, I'll go ahead and pop the reference down at the bottom. I can clean it up later, but I just want to make sure it's at my fingertips. And most importantly, if I'm using a scholarly and peer-reviewed article, I want to make sure that I can get back to the specific source that I used to pull that information from. I cannot tell you how many times in the past, before I came up with this process that actually works well for me, how many times I had to spend so much time trying to find an article again because I didn't save it, I didn't put the reference down at the bottom, XYZ, okay? So guys, I promise you, if you pop the reference section down at the bottom and then start copying and pasting as you go, what those references are, even if it's just the link, you can actually go back and do, you know, the APA format later. There's some really good generators out there to assist you with that, but just make sure that you're not putting yourself in a position to spend a lot of extra time trying to re-find the resources, okay? The other rule of Fight Club, guys, is to make sure that you don't forget to respond to your peers. That is usually a requirement for each online discussion post or assignment. At least I know that that is for my university. I will go in, I'll do my assignment, I'll make sure that I'm meeting the deadline for getting my initial post response posted out there. And like, for instance, with this class, I have until Sunday to respond to my peers. That gives me all that time in between to actually go back. It also gives people time to get their stuff posted as well. And when it comes to maximizing those points, guys, remember I said I was going to say this a lot. When you want to maximize those points, you want to make sure that your responses are substantive to your peers. Use something from the research that you pulled for your response to articulate and add on or respond to something that they've written. Make sure that you're driving a new point, that you're not just going out there and saying, oh, thanks for the post, it was great, I liked it when you said woo. You know, you want to make sure that you're adding something that adds value so that your instructor will give you full points. Again, the goal here is what, guys? Maximize your points. This will help, I'm sure, alleviate any constructive feedback that you're getting if you're going through and you're doing this kind of color coding or at least breaking your questions apart and addressing each component, even if you don't write 250 words for each part of these questions, right? The other piece is that when you're doing substantive responses, that lets the instructor know that you really did do the readings, you really did do the research, and that you're knowledgeable about the topic or discussion for that week. Another way that you guys could lose points, and I definitely don't want you to be remiss about this part, is ensuring that your references are in the appropriate format. Right now, I'm sure many schools are going through the transition between APA 6 and APA 7. So just make sure you truly understand what your instructor is looking for you to do. Last pro tip, guys, before I end the video, you'll see over here I have Grammarly popped open, or actually on here. When I'm writing my responses, I will open Grammarly and make sure that it's set to the academic setting, and I will make corrections based on Grammarly's suggestions. It's really good at catching things. And again, for instance, this is all on the questions that the professor has here or what have you, but the suggestions are pretty good. Making sure that you're paying attention to some of the other suggestions that Grammarly has. It will want you to change words that, depending on your field, you may not want to change. So don't just blindly accept all the suggestions. Definitely read through it. Take a look at where it is in the text and if it makes sense for you to alternate. And if so, definitely do it so that the reader's eye doesn't get bored with seeing the same thing 5,000 times. But it's also a way to expand your vocabulary. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if it was helpful for you. If you guys do have questions about other tips that I can share about online classes, ways to maximize your points, or pro tips on any other thing that you're experiencing, definitely let me know. I'd be happy to do what I can to support. And I really want to ensure that I'm providing you with content that is useful. So put your questions below. Let me know how I can best support you, and I'll continue to share my journey. I'll see you guys next time.